This is a presentation of Standard Access Control List as a part of my Advanced Networking course. When we look at it, the Standard Access Control List are the simple ones, the one where we can only filter on one thing, and that is the source IP address. So you go in and make statements, and you tell whether you want to permit or deny, and where the traffic comes from. And whenever you are making access control list, it's important that you remember that this is a sequential setup, which means that you will check first with the first statement. If that matches your IP address, then you will do whatever the statement says. Otherwise, you will go to the next. So in this case here, where we see the example over here, we see that first of all, I want to deny a host from a specific IP address, and then the next statement means that whatever else is coming, I will allow. So start with the specific things first and go down to the more general things afterwards. And this is how it will work through. So it will just start by checking each statement. Yeah, that's the standard ACL build up. And if you look at how to set it up, well then what you do is that you go in and you say, in config mode, you go in and say access control list and then a number. The number will apply whether it is a standard or an extended list. If it's a standard, the first number should be between 1 and 99. And then you say whether you want to deny or permit it, and then the source address that you want to set up. And then of course also remember the wildcard afterwards. 0 in the wildcard means that you need a match. 1, binary 1s in the wildcard means that you need no match, that you ignore it. So if I want to check if an IP address starts with 192.168.1 and then something, well then my wildcard mask needs to be 000 because I want a match on the 3 first bytes of the IP address, and then I don't really care what's in the last byte, so that's why I put 255 in the last one. So 000.255 means that I will check the first 3 bytes and ignore whatever in the last byte of the IP address. The remark keyword afterwards is where you can go in and put in a text, a help text for yourself. If I want to take off the IP or the access control list again, well then I just use the command no access control list and then the entire command once more. Yeah. So that is how to configure and to set it up. So, and as I said, the way that you build it is that you will do the most specific things first. If I want to deny a specific host and allow everything else, well then it is important that I take the most specific thing first, because since it will be checked sequentially, it's important that we do this. So that is how you build it, and it's a good idea to remember and try to do it before you implement it in your router. And you should always remember that there is an implicit deny any in the end. So whether if you want to allow all other types of traffic, then you need to put in a permit any before the deny any in your access control list. Yep. So now I accidentally pushed 2, so let's just go back one more. Sorry about that. That's internal logic. This is how to apply it on an interface. Well, what you do is that you go to the interface that you want to put it on, and then you say IP access group, and then the number that you just made. So if I make an access control list number 1, well then that is what I put in here. And then I tell the router whether I want it to work on incoming or outgoing traffic. And here you should try to imagine that you sit yourself in the middle of the router, and then you think, is this traffic going out of a specific interface, or is it coming in from the outside and into the router? And then again, to remove it, if I don't want it to be applied to a specific interface, well, then I go in and use the no access group command. Just take it off. Yep. And we remember also when we discussed the general thing about the access control list, it's important that these lists will be applied as close to the destination as possible. Yeah, and that's basically it. And in this case here, we start by denying a specific host, and then we allow everything else to come through. Yeah. We can also, if I don't like the numbers, well, then I can name my access control list. So I can call it something like denying a specific host, or allowing internet traffic, or whatever I like to do. So I can just call it a name instead of a number, but then I of course need to indicate whether it is a standard or an extended list that I'm working with. I can also put comments, as I said, with the remark keyword. Well, then I can just put some comments in for myself to make it easier to remember what kind of an access control list this is. Editing standard or editing control list is quite tricky, because it is entered, the sequence is made by the way that you enter them. And if you want to take off something in the middle of your access control list and put in something new, it's quite a problem. So what we normally say is that you will actually try to make your access control list in a text editor first, and then put it in the correct order, and if you need to change something, then change it in the text editor, and then implement it afterwards in your router. Because normally it's, or I would say it's easier just to, if I made a mistake, then I will just ignore the one that I made and do not implement it on an interface, because as long as you just put it in the router and don't apply it on an interface, well, then it will have no effect. So what you can do is just make a new one and make the correct sequence in the new one that you're making instead, and then implement that on your interface. You can see by a show ACL list to see what kind of ACL list that you have implemented, and also how many that is actually active on interfaces, and whether they are working in inbound or outbound. Yeah. What you can also do is that, apart from applying an ACL list to an interface, you can actually also do it to your virtual or VTY ports, the one that you, for instance, go and use for SSH or telnet traffic. You can go in and say, okay, I will allow only telnet from a certain network or from a certain host also. So if you want to secure your telnet, or especially your telnet, but also your SSH traffic into your router, well, then you can go in and do that, and you do it with an access class command instead of access group. So if you want to put that on your VTY interface, well, then it's the access class that you are using. So here, for example, I can go in and on my VTYs say that I will allow traffic only coming from one IP segment to be allowed to telnet into my router. You can also use access control list in combination with NAT, for instance.